So it is my honor to welcome and interview Dr. Darshan Shankar, Vice Chancellor, the University of Transdisciplinary Health Science and Technology, on behalf of College Dunia. He is the Managing Trustee of FRLHT, Founder and Vice Chancellor of TDU. His core contribution lies in the field of educational innovation. He started his career in 1973 at the age of 23 at the University of Bombay, where he designed and implemented a postgraduate experiential learning program that won a Commonwealth Award in 1976 for being the best program in the Commonwealth for linking university education to community needs. He has won several national and international awards with Commonwealth Award 1976, Norman Borlaug Award 1998 for contribution to conservation of wild populations of medical plants, Columbian University International Award 2003 for complementary and alternative medicine, and in 2011 the Government of India conferred on him the Padma Shri. He has held several honorary positions like Advisor ISM, Planning Commission Government of India, Member National Biodiversity Authority Government of India, Member National Worldwide Board Government of India, etc. He has written one book, chapter in several books, and peer-reviewed articles in national and international publishers. So it is an honor to interview you on behalf of College Dunia, sir. So educational vision of university in line with NEP, National Education Policy 2020. Your thoughts on it, sir?
National Education Policy 2020 has made a big departure from conventional strategies or conventional vision of higher education. As you would probably know, the policy which has been accepted by the government advises all universities in the next few years to offer, even at the undergraduate level and at other levels, postgraduate and so on and so forth, offer programs that are multidisciplinary. So in a practical sense, a few years from now, there will be no university which will be offering courses like the conventional ones, BA, BCom, BSc, in different compartments. If you are doing BA, you cannot learn anything about science. If you're learning arts, then you can't learn anything about finance. Now all that is going to change, and the policy says that students, even at the undergraduate level, should have choices of a wide variety of subjects across disciplines. So there could be a student who's studying finance but is also studying music and is also studying physics and so on and so forth. I think this is a very good policy because this compartmentalization into boxes of just arts or science or commerce for a fresh graduate from a school is rather unreasonable because, one doesn't know what one wants to do. And then, if you make a choice, if you make a wrong choice at that moment of time, you're stuck with that choice forever, in the way the universities are currently organized. So the transdisciplinary university absolutely believes in this approach, and we are not inspired by the recent policy of 2020. We are a few years, we are not an old university, we are a relatively new university. But our foundation itself, and as the name says, it's a transdisciplinary university. So we actually go a little beyond multidisciplinary. What do I mean by that? Multidisciplinary means combination of disciplines, but the kind of disciplines that are today taught in universities, whether it be in the arts like history, geography, social sciences, be it in the sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, geology, astrophysics, or whatever, all these subjects are actually derived from Western cultural and intellectual traditions.
Right.
This is the way in which Europe viewed nature and society. So, education is about understanding nature, education is about understanding society. In the European tradition, they said if you want to understand society, then we will divide the understanding of society into economics, sociology, subjects like that, philosophy, and so on and so forth. If you want to understand the functioning of nature, now this is one way of understanding nature and one way of understanding society, and that is the way in which Europeans decided to do it, and they divided the subjects therefore into the kind of subjects that are currently being taught in university systems, and that is what we call multidisciplinary, where you can combine economics and physics and so on and so forth. A transdisciplinary university says, why only rely on Western cultural intellectual traditions? India has its own cultural and intellectual traditions. Africa has its own cultural intellectual traditions. China has its own cultural intellectual traditions. Why should the whole world look at knowledge or look at society or look at nature only in the way the Europeans did? And so in our university, we will have not only multiple disciplines from the Western cultural intellectual tradition. I'm not saying that we should stop teaching physics, chemistry, biology, economics, and so on and so forth. These are all categories of knowledge in the Western cultural intellectual tradition. What our university is saying, what about Indian cultural intellectual tradition? So can I teach biology and Ayurveda? Ayurveda is the way which look at biology in India. We don't call it biology. We call it Ayurveda, the Veda, the knowledge of life, Ayu, the knowledge of changes that happen in life. That's called Ayurveda. Now, Ayurveda is an Indian term for biology. It doesn't sound like biology. And its way of looking at biological change is also very different. It doesn't look at biological change in terms of change that is taking place at the cellular level. That's one way of looking at biological change, to see cells that are there in living objects and see the changes that take place in the cells. But living objects also have what we call in Ayurveda 5 states of nature. Panch Mahabhut Siddhant. Now this sounds very, very strange to most young people, because in school they have never been exposed to ways of looking at nature or ways of looking at society which are different from the Western cultural intellectual tradition. So in our university, we are opening the choices of subjects not only to multiple disciplines derived from the Western or the European cultural intellectual tradition, but also from the Indian cultural and intellectual tradition. And so the choices are now wider. So we welcome, and we are completely in line with the National Education Policy 2020. All programs in our university will be multidisciplinary, and not only multidisciplinary, but also what we call transdisciplinary. Europeans do a lot of detail. So if I want to draw someone's face, I will draw it in detail in the classical Western tradition. But the Africans wouldn't draw it in detail. They would just sketch a line drawing of that face, and it would be so well done that you could make out from that it belongs to somebody, like what we do in caricature. When we do comical designs of, let's say, Indira Gandhi, then you just need a prominent nose and then a face of that form. And then that's Indira Gandhi, because you've captured a feature that distinguishes this person. So those are called line drawings. The Africans are masters at, that kind of art. So transdisciplinary art is actually already there. The Europeans, there's a great painter named Picasso. who combined European art and African art, and it became a new kind of art. It was what we would call transdisciplinary art. So this is a university for transdisciplinary studies. That means, and the policy permits this. There is no university in India which, other than language, they may teach you Hindi, Marathi, Telugu. This is, of course, indigenous, these languages. But other than language, they don't teach you Ayurveda biology, let us put it like that, which is, use the word biology, you just say Ayurveda. Ayurveda is not only about medicine, it is also about the way in which we look at biological forms and the changes that happen in biological forms. So that's my response to your question about our vision, that here is a university which is transdisciplinary, which means it is multidisciplinary, but also cross-cultural, meaning the disciplines need not be the kind of disciplines that today we restrict students to in normal universities, because all those students, all those disciplines today in university systems are only derived from one culture. Now, this is not correct so far as my university is concerned, and the national education policy would encourage this as well. Can you go on to your next question?
Sure, sir. So, Innovative Life Science Program and NEP 2020, your thoughts on that, sir?
Yes, this is one of the interesting programs that we are currently offering in the Transdisciplinary University. It's the postgraduate program, MSc, in life sciences. That means sciences about life. And the focus of this program will be on bridging between Ayurveda and biology. As I explained earlier, both are about biological forms and biological systems and biological change. And so we're going to find that. Both Indian knowledge systems as well as from modern knowledge systems. And that's very unique. And it will help such students to probably have a deeper understanding of biological change. Now, I can explain this very briefly, but I can't go into too much detail in an interview. You see, when you are looking at biological change taking place, when you're looking at it from the lens of modern biology, then we look at biological change that happens at the molecular or at the cellular level. Now, of course, all biological forms have cells in them. Now, when you are looking at changes at that cellular level, and we have lots of modern instruments for doing it, you have microscopes of various kinds, very, very powerful microscopes for looking at what is happening at the molecular or at the cellular level. But the cell is a fundamental part of the whole biological system. Now, even if you know what is a change happening in that part, you cannot predict or you cannot extrapolate the change happening in the whole system, because what change happens in a part does not necessarily, the human body is so complex that you cannot extrapolate a cellular change to even the change happening in a tissue. A tissue has many, many cells in it, or in an organ, and leave alone the changes happening in the entire complexity of the biological system, which has millions of cells interconnected in various. The entire functioning, the running of the biological system, because it draws all its conclusions from the changes happening in the part of the biological system, namely the cell. In Ayurveda, we don't know anything about cells. we don't look at parts. We look at the entire biological system. So we have what we would call a systemic view of the biological system. And so we know what is happening in the whole biological system, not in the part of it. Now, this is very important and very interesting, and it's the big challenge in modern biology. Modern biology's challenge is happening in the part, we don't know what is happening at the whole. In Ayurveda, it's the opposite. We know what is happening at the whole level, we don't know what is happening at the part. And so when you combine these two, Ayurveda and biology, you get an understanding of what is happening both at the part level, at the cellular level, and at the whole systemic level, which is what Ayurveda helps you to do. So you probably will become a better biologist, in a broader sense of biology. This will be biology which will be transdisciplinary biology. You will become a far better biologist than someone who's only studying Ayurveda, because if you're only studying Ayurveda, you know what is happening at the whole, but you don't know what's happening at the part, at a cellular level. In modern Western biology, you know what is happening at the cellular level, you don't know what is happening at the whole level. In both cases, it is incomplete. But when you combine the two, you get a very powerful and a better understanding of biological change. And this is the MSc we are going to be offering, an MSc which we call MSc Life Sciences. But it is transdisciplinary, and it will combine both Ayurveda's understanding of biological change and the modern Western understanding of biological change, and hopefully produce students who have a far deeper understanding of biology.
Great, sir. So it's not the question. So for my understanding, I'm asking. So the course that you're speaking about, the life science, the curriculum will be the mix of the Western biology as well as Ayurveda, and a separate curriculum developed especially by TDU University for this course. Is it right?
Exactly. So we have very good biologists. We have biologists trained in Oxford and Cambridge and American universities and so on and so forth, so who understand everything about molecular biology. We also have great Ayurvedic scientists who understand the other dimension of biological change. So you're right that our curriculum has very creatively combined both these kinds of knowledge. And so it is for the benefit of the student. It will create a new generation of students with a deeper understanding of biological change than is currently possible under either of the knowledge systems. Ayurveda gives you incomplete because whole but not part. Modern biology, incomplete, gives you part but not whole. This will be a combination of the two.
Great.
And it is not only going to be theoretical. There will be lots of practicals. There will be a lot of experiments. The university has a hospital attached to its campus. We have a hospital there. So the students from this kind of a program will be useful to industry for developing new kinds of natural products. It will be useful to medical institutions, because the entry for this program can be someone who's got a bachelor's in chemistry, physics, biology, etc. And it can also be for medical students who have a degree in Ayurveda or MBBS. And so both kinds of students could join this program. And as I said, the people who do this kind of a master's program would be useful to industry, would be useful to medical institutions, would be useful to research laboratories, where in research laboratories we can widen the scope of research by this kind of a training, where they have understanding of both part and whole.
And the duration of the course would be?
It's the normal duration of a master's course, which is a 2-year postgraduate course. A lot of emphasis on project work in this university. You can apprentice also here and there. We have places where you can go And I'm almost coming into your third question or your fourth question. We don't believe in 3-hour exams. We think that 3-hour examination is rubbish. It does not evaluate learning, it does not evaluate anything. All it evaluates is memory. We don't believe in it. We think that it is something that should be discarded altogether. If you want to assess someone's learning and comprehension, you make him do something, you make him write something of what he has understood. But to give a 3-hour examination is a traumatic experience. You can just get high blood pressure.
Well said, sir.
Okay, please carry on with your next question.
So, what do you think should be university's top priority over the next 10 years?
Given our interest, our university's top priorities would be programs in health sciences. That's our area of specialty. Another area of competence that we food and nutrition. This is so in food and nutrition. You see, the understanding of food is very, very limited today. Supposing someone says, should I eat this food? Today, it will be a chemist who will tell him, well, this food contains so much calories, so much protein, so much carbohydrates, fats, minerals, vitamins, etc. Now, this is a chemical understanding of food. Now, I may be impressed. Oh, it has high protein content and body needs proteins. Of course, the body needs proteins. But merely by information of how much protein, carbohydrate, fat, etc. is not sufficient to decide on a choice of food, because that chemistry of a food does not translate into nutrition. When you consume the food, everyone absorbs that protein, carbohydrate, fat, mineral differently. Everyone's absorption is completely different. And so we are going to be offering a course on nutrition, just like I explained about Ayurveda and biology. This will be a course which combines food chemistry, biochemistry, Ayurvedic pharmacology of food, the way Ayurveda understands food. Now, Ayurveda understands food far more holistically. Let me give you an example, and to the audience who are going to listen to this, an example. Supposing you take the dal which we call moong dal, the green dal, green gram, and you take another dal which we call urad dal. The chemistry of both of them, you can look up the National Institute of Nutrition. They have a database on all Indian foods and their food chemistry. So if you look at the food chemistry of these two dals, it will be not exactly similar. And a layman may look at the chemistry and say, well, they both are, having more or less the same profile of protein, carbohydrate, fats, minerals, etc. So I can substitute one for the other. Now, you start consuming urad dal, for example, on a regular basis. You have it for 7 days, in the normal quantity that people eat dal. What you will find at the end of the 7th day is that you have indigestion, you have hyperacidity. These are the two symptoms you will experience. If you take urad dal, morning, afternoon, evening, and everything you take urad dal, you will have these two symptoms. If you take moong dal, you can have it all your life, and even a baby can be given it or a child can be given it, and they will be never having these kinds of, it is very easy to digest. It will create absolutely no hyperacidity or anything like that. And yet the chemistry is the same. So while the chemistry of both the dals is similar, it's not the same, it is similar. The biology is very different, because when they are ingested and when they are taken into the body, one dal behaves very differently from the other dal. So it is not enough to know the chemistry of materials in order to decide on nutrition. You ought to also know something more about their biology. And this, what I narrated to you, is derived from Ayurveda biology. In Ayurveda biology, we say urad dal, and this is Indian language, urad dal is ushna. Ushna means it will cause hyperacidity. Urad dal is a technical term. Guru. Guru means very difficult to digest. And that is the experience. I mean, you don't have to believe that that diagnosis of urad dal. You consume it. You consume it for 7 days. You will find that you have hyperacidity because it is ushna. You will find it is indigestion that you will experience because it is guru. It is difficult to digest. You will have flatulence, because of that indigestion. So really, I mean, food is such an important thing, and therefore we want to start postgraduate programs in food and nutrition, because food determines a lot of our health. And our understanding of food is very incomplete when we only rely on Western nutrition and food science. If we combine, I'm not saying that science is not useful, it is useful, but you have to combine it. You have to combine it with the Indian understanding of food and nutrition, and then you combine the two, and that's the kind of program. So I'm saying in future we'll offer programs in health sciences, in food and nutrition, in conservation. We also do work in conservation of plants, so in conservation, in public health, in veterinary sciences, the animal health. We do a lot of work for animal health. And in general, we will look at programs also relating to Indian knowledge systems. This relates to the first point I made, that universities today only offer disciplines which are derived from Western knowledge systems. This is a colonial legacy. This was not always the case. This has only happened in the last 150 years, because the Europeans, brainwashed us to say that only real knowledge is the knowledge that comes from their culture. Now, it's not only Indians who have been brainwashed, so have the Africans, so have the entire world. I mean, the Europeans have had an enormous influence on university systems all over the world. Not to say that what they taught is not useful, but it is partial. It is one way of looking at nature. It is one way of looking at society. And there are other ways of looking at nature and society too. And so I think that in future, all universities in the world should become multicultural, not only multidisciplinary, they should also become multicultural. So I've highlighted the topics or the subjects in which we will in future, next 10 years, health sciences, food and nutrition, conservation, public health, veterinary science, and Indian knowledge systems.
Great. So what would you like to know about your university that may not know?
Well, many people should know that in my university, we more or less ban 3-hour examination process. That's banned. We don't believe in it. Not for any other reason, because everybody knows, even in educationists know that, in a time-bound examination, you cannot assess knowledge. You can assess something else. You can assess recall, you can assess memory, you can assess information or something like that, but not really knowledge. So we don't believe in it. So students should know we don't believe in 3-hour examinations, and there will be no such examinations which are going to be implemented in our university. Second thing is that we give a lot of emphasis to learning by doing. It's not only important to know what is something about or why, the what and why of such a subject, you should also know how. In our universities, we don't give enough emphasis on how to do. So a lot of emphasis on doing, learning by doing. And this means that the learning is not only classroom based. Classrooms, you cannot usually learn how. Laboratories you can learn how, but laboratory is not the only place for learning how. There are many other spaces in which you can learn how. For example, if I'm teaching food and nutrition, I might send people to places where, to kitchens, where food is cooked, or to communities where they have very special kind of not only cooking, but also the vessels of cooking. I mean, today the cooking vessels, aluminium is a very unhealthy material to cook food in. I mean, traditionally we've had so many materials, from mud pots, which are very, very interesting material to cook. And we have discarded them only because, in commerce, it is easier to make vessels made of aluminium or steel or something like that. But iron vessels are very important, mud vessels are very important, stone vessels are very important. So we might send them to places where, those. So it is learning by doing, not classroom oriented only. There will be classroom, but not only classroom. You can go and apprentice, you can go and see. Then lots of electives in all our programs. Electives means choices. That means even if you're learning food and nutrition, you could also learn music. You could also learn dance. It will be an elective. It will not be a major thing. You could even learn carpentry. Why should a student of science not learn carpentry? I mean, you can focus on science, whichever science you want to learn. But to know, I am speaking now from my bad experience of learning. I was in Bombay University and so on and so forth. I cannot even, I'm ashamed to say it, I cannot even put a nail in the wall straight, because I don't know how to put a nail in the wall straight, leave alone repair something and so on and so forth, because the education has not given me that exposure, and to most students, it is not just me. So people know how to do these things. They have learnt it outside the university, not in the university.
Well said,
You should know gardening.
Yes.
You should know gardening. Why should you not know gardening? So lots of electives. And finally, thing about our university is that we give a lot of attention to research projects, small projects, but research projects will be part of the education. Try this out, find out about this. So learn how to think. So these are the distinguishing features about the university. No exams of 3-hour type. Exam will be there, but not through 3-hour type of examination. Learning by doing. Lots of electives. You can learn carpentry while you're learning and music while you're learning science, or you're learning food or nutrition or something like that. And research focus to help people to think. All right. So your last question.
Yes, sir. Any suggestion you would like to give to the current youth and the aspiring students?
Yes, I don't know whether I'm competent to give any advice, but I can share my thoughts. And I think that young people should realize that the purpose of education is not jobs. Of course, you must learn skills. You must have knowledge by which you can create a better society. You can play some role. But the purpose of education is to know yourself. That's the first purpose. If you don't have a deeper understanding of yourself as a result of being, let's say, a PhD, then your education is to that extent incomplete. You may know about cellular biology, but you don't know about yourself. So you may have, for example, a great cellular biologist or a great film actor who committed suicide. What's happening? This was a great cellular biologist, knew everything about cellular biology, but did not know about himself. He committed suicide or she committed suicide. How did that happen? Suicide is no solution, we know, for any problem.
Correct.
But people do that in spite of being very educated, so to say. They have a PhD in molecular biology from Harvard University, but the person committed suicide. So he did not know enough about himself. He knew about molecular biology, but did not know about himself. So the purpose of education is firstly to know yourself, and secondly to contribute to creating a better society. And people should bear in mind that no matter what be the subjects that are today considered to be, important in terms of jobs, for example, artificial intelligence or machine learning or stem cell biology, things change all the time. I mean, there was a time when mechanical engineering was very important, but today they say, no, not mechanical engineering, robotic engineering is the main thing. But 30 years ago, I mean, lots of students wanted to do mechanical engineering. Now, what do you do? Because things are changing all the time. So you should learn to learn, you should learn to think. You should learn in an environment which teaches you to innovate, to adapt, to change. If you learn fixed things, they will become out of date, after some time. So that's my 3 pieces of advice. Learn in places where you can know something about yourself. And if the university doesn't teach you, find somebody who can teach you, because if you are considering yourself to be an educated person, you should know about yourself. You should be able to manage your own mind and body. Secondly, purpose of education is to contribute to, a better society. And the third is to learn to adapt, to learn to think. Don't get stuck into a particular you can learn a particular skill that is important today, but tomorrow if it is not there, then what do you do? So learn to adapt. I think that's all that I have to say. You asked me 5 questions and I have given you the 5 answers to the best of my ability. I hope the students who will listen to this will find some sense in it, and even if they don't find some sense in it, it's also okay. Then they should produce their own sense, in the matter. I mean, you don't take a person just because he's the Vice Chancellor as an authority and he knows everything. He doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time and insightful thoughts on education, sir. It gave us a broad picture about what students can expect from the college and the course. Also, what is expected from the students to join transdisciplinary health science and technology. Wishing you a great year ahead, sir. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.